Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the recap and review of NCIS Season 16, Episode 22, ... and Executioner. So we start the episode by finding out what actually happened between Clark and Mallory where Judge Jury left off. Clark came in looking for Vance and Gibbs, as did Mallory moments later, and they were both in this confrontation about who was working for who and what the other knew, and then Clark ultimately drew his gun and then Mallory shot back. I made a joke last episode that Gibbs has to move, but he's never gonna be able to sell this house. The second he has to disclose how many people have died here, there's gonna be an issue. The next thing we see is them investigating the crime scene, but it's suddenly daylight. Was the body just chillin' overnight? Did Gibbs just stack some beers on it to keep it cold? I'd love to know. Gibbs, Vance, and Mallory are all down talking in Gibbs's basement, and Mallory is saying that after Clark took her off the case, he lowered her security clearance and ruined her reputation at the agency. She knows that there's something that Clark knew that they know that she doesn't know, and she wants back in. Vance asks Gibbs for a moment alone with Mallory, and he just leaves them a bottle of bourbon and turns into the mom from Mean Girls. Mallory apologizes and says that she fell in love with Vance and that in another life they'd be able to be together. During all of this, she's holding his hands, and then after she says that, Vance just physically shakes her off. Judge Deeks then immediately goes to his office, and we find out that he's in charge of the Vigilante Justice League. I'm really not skipping anything. It was just that abrupt. Him and his fellow judges rule Gibbs guilty in killing Pedro Hernandez. Oh, sorry. Season 7 is calling. Judge Deacon also says he's already picked the perfect person to get the job done. In the squad room, McGee tries to convince Gibbs that they should still talk to SecDev while they have the element of surprise. He says as SecDev walks up beside them. He brings Gibbs up to Vance's office and explains to the two of them that he had an offshore account that kind of got lost in the shuffle post 9/11, but now someone's been accessing it and he has no idea who or why. He also presents them with all the records they've been searching for. If only they knew it'd been that easy. They could have just asked. Bishop and Torres go to talk to the judge at this incredible bowling alley that he apparently owns. They then reveal to the judge that the bailiff was the one who killed Crumb, and the judge says, "I hate to see someone who I thought was a good man commit murder." And Bishop's like, "Good men don't commit murder." I want to see how she feels about that statement in 20 minutes. Deacon starts talking about how the system is failing people, and Bishop is like, "Wow, what a weird thing to say right now." McGee and Casey figure out there's been a number of withdrawals from the account over the past several years, and the money keeps ending up in cities that have had a high-profile murderer be set free on a technicality. Not only that, but the murderers also always end up dead the next day. With that, they're finally able to piece together the whole Vigilante Justice League situation we're having. Later that night, Gibbs leaves his diner and gets into his truck and finds a picture of Hernandez on his dashboard. Before he can figure out what's going on, his truck is shot up. In the squad room, they're talking about vigilantes and superheroes, and Torres is like, "Everybody loves superheroes," which is bold, coming from a man who tried to single-handedly tear down Comic-Con a few weeks ago. Bishop is like, "Gibbs isn't here yet, there's no coffee." I love that her priorities are in order. Bishop wants to check up on him, but Torres and McGee are both very hesitant. Bishop calls him anyway, but Gibbs is too busy digging bullets out of his truck and screens her call. Sloan says that all reports confirm Mallory's story, and Vance admits that he really fell in love with her. Mallory, not Sloan. That would have been a moment. Sloan says if he was looking for a happily ever after, he should have chose a different career, which should just be the tagline for this show. Bishop goes to the diner and she sees that the cops are there and everything's been roped off, and so she goes to Elaine, who is Gibbs's waitress friend. Bishop's like, "What happened?" And Elaine's like, "Gibbs happened." I like that this is just a normal shift for her when Gibbs is around. Ducky emerges from his chambers to meet the team in autopsy and tell them that all the judges in the cases they were referring to earlier clerked for the same man, Judge Deacon. Gibbs goes to confront Deacon at the bowling alley and tells him to do his own dirty work. They have this whole conversation about vigilantism, and Deacon's like, we're really on the same team. It's a conversation that I think we've had many a time, but I think it's always still interesting to see. Once Gibbs leaves, we see that Torres secretly followed him and has been watching from his truck the whole time. The next day, Torres tells McGee and Bishop that he followed Gibbs last night. And they're like, yikes. They're trying to convince McGee that this is something he needs to confront Gibbs about, and McGee's like, I've already confronted him enough. I like how in the early seasons, Gibbs was like this unquestionable figure of authority, and now it's just like, I've already fired him twice this week, it's your turn. The three of them go to Gibbs' desk to confront him, and Gibbs literally just goes, nope. The team chases him into the elevator, and McGee flips the switch off and is like, you really think there's anything you could tell us after all these years that would surprise us? And Gibbs takes him up on the challenge. Gibbs admits to them that he killed the man that killed his family, and now Deacon knows and is trying to kill him for it. McGee quietly flips the switch back on, and they all continue the longest elevator ride of their lives. Casey then figures out that Secdev had secretly been in contact with Mallory. They confront him about it, and he says yes, after Clark took her off the case, Mallory came to him and told him that people were snooping around his accounts. However, he didn't tell her to kill Clark, and once he found out she did, he came to NCIS. He also thinks that Mallory must have found something very valuable in those files to go rogue like that. Casey runs a test on the photo of Hernandez and sees Mallory's partial print left in the ink, meaning that she was the one who shot at Gibbs. They point out that Mallory figured out this whole Vigilante Justice League thing and that Judge Deacon was running it before the team did. I think they should just hire her. Since she was a CIA operative, they know Mallory's been trained on how to disappear, which is why they're surprised when she turns on her cell phone and leads them to Gibbs' diner. They come to arrest her, and Mallory says she doesn't want to fight, she's actually turning herself in. Gibbs whips out the handcuffs to arrest her, and I'm sure Elaine doesn't even look up from her coffee at this point. They bring her into interrogation, and she says that after Vance told her they had no future, she was looking to start a new life. She went to Deeks to get a job as a hitman so that she would have the money to leave the country and start over. But once she found out that the target was Gibbs, she couldn't go through with it, which is why she intentionally missed. Couldn't she have put something a little bit more helpful than the Hernandez photo on his dashboard? Like maybe a note that says like duck. She says she's willing to testify against Deacon and that she has another trick up her sleeve. Gibbs goes to confront Deacon again, and this time really aggressively tries to get him to shoot him. Literally, it's a 2-minute scene, and one of those minutes is just Gibbs being like, whenever you're ready. I just snorted. Noted. Deacon ends up not shooting him, and Gibbs is like, you're gonna regret that, actually. This time the team accompanied him, and they reveal that Mallory had recorded him instructing her to take the hit on her little necklace that Vance gave her. The judge is like, you can't use that. And McGee's like, yeah, we can. Virginia's a one-party consent state. Which feels like something the judge should know. But I digress. Back at NCIS, Secdev thanks Vance and says that if he ever needs him, just to give him a call. Sloan then comes in and says that she heard Mallory's plea deal went through, and also knows some librarians she can set him up with. Outside the courthouse, the team is debating whether or not they should bring up Hernandez again to Gibbs, and McGee's like, who? Which I guess answers that question. Then we witness the biggest plot twist of the episode. NCIS playing a song from the Hot 100. It actually works really well, and it shows Gibbs leading Deacon into the courtroom, and the whole team is watching him now go on trial. And that is ... and Executioner. With this episode, I think there were some things you could kind of see coming, like the judge being involved in the league, or like that the handprint was going to be Mallory's. But even within that, I think there were their own surprises. Like, I expected her to turn on them and like, yes, it'd be her fingerprint and whatever, but I didn't expect her to come through for them in the end like she did. I really liked that they did that with her, because I think it would have been so easy to just like make her the villain. I think, you know, she genuinely cared for him, and then she kind of had to deal with this thing going back and forth. And yes, it was a little crazy that she accepted this hit to just leave. But besides that, I think it made her a more developed character, and I appreciated that. I'm content with leaving Mallory's story where it is for now. I think with the whole like plea deal and she ended up being a good guy and what she said to Vance, like I'm pretty chill with just leaving it where it is. I think it would be nice to see Mallory again, but maybe a couple seasons from now. Her and Vance's storyline had some like Tony Jean vibes for obvious reasons. I loved when Jean came back, so I think it might be fun to see Mallory come back a few seasons from now. I don't know if she needs to necessarily wait 8. A couple would be fine. Swan Torres. Oh my god. Swan Torres is terrifying. There are these little moments in the episodes where it just looks like he's about to lose his damn mind, but in like a calculated way. I don't know, there's just been some moments where I'm like fearful. I thought the Vance and Sloane moments this episode were really great. I love that he just kind of goes to her for things. Like, I think their friendship is just so lovely. I love seeing it. I forgot that they didn't know he killed Hernandez. Like, I keep losing track of who knows what. And then all of a sudden people will randomly bring it up and then like the music lets me know that it's a big deal. It reminds me of the whole situation with like Ziva and Ari, where literally out of the blue people will be like, I know you killed your brother Ari. And I'm like, how could you possibly know that? Speaking of Hernandez though, I do think it's interesting that we're bringing him up again. Like I kind of mentioned earlier, that was a big thing in season 7. I think if it was out of the blue, it would have been kind of a strange move. But I think when you're talking about this big vigilante plotline, it kind of has to be brought up. Like, that whole vigilante moment that he had is such a huge part of his history and his character and who he is, that I don't think you can really just gloss over that in this situation. I was mentioning in the last video, I think it's more of a gateway into his psyche and his mental state, and like, to what extent was Deacon onto something when he's like, you and I aren't so different after all. I think those are important things that Gibbs is gonna have to deal with that's bigger than just him shooting Hernandez. I think when it comes to the finale, which is Daughters, I think that might tie into Kelly. I think that whole reason why he had a vigilante moment is going to be bigger than the act itself. Does that make sense? I feel like it's a little different this time that we're bringing it up. Speaking of the finale, yes, the finale appears to be focusing on Emily and Gibbs's mental state and his opinions on vigilantism, but I still don't think we should end this season without some more talk about Ziva. My feelings about how much Ziva we're gonna get in the season 16 finale has certainly wavered. I'm fairly confident that it's gonna spill into season 17 again, unless I'm being bamboozled. I also like that after Perennial I was like, oh, for sure, end of season 16 Ziva arc, definitely. Now I'm like, maybe if we're lucky they'll show us another plant. Again, I feel like they left Ziva's office open for a reason, and the whole thing with Bishop saying that she intends to go back there, and then there was the line about hope. I feel like we are building to something. I don't know what and I don't know when, but it just doesn't feel like the end of it. And I know they have not referenced her at all in the past 2 episodes, and if saying they referenced her in episode 21 was a stretch, my god, we just are dislocating our arms with this one. I would be surprised with how much they have mentioned her in the second half of this season if that suddenly went silent in these last 2 episodes as well. I would imagine that we'd get some references. I just don't think we're done with that storyline. I hope we're not done with that storyline. I want to see more of McGee and Gibbs's relationship, because there was that line in this episode, after like all these years, is there anything you could say that would surprise us, which reminded me of that line a couple episodes ago where he was like, you know, after 16 and a half years, why do you still keep us at a distance? And then McGee had to take him off the case, and he was wondering why he burned rule number 10. I just think there's a lot of things we could see McGee and Gibbs talk about and maybe work through, or at least have a discussion about, and I think that would be so interesting. Speaking of discussions, I do wonder if they're going to bring up Hernandez again, because yes, I get that they're respecting that he wants to keep that private, and I'm not saying that they're going to like go out and like shout it from the rooftops. I think there are situations where I could see Gibbs talking about the Hernandez thing with each of the team members. Like, I think that could come up with one of his discussions with McGee about like how have I been with you for 16 and a half years and I didn't know that, or with him and Bishop, because they had that whole thing about withholding relevant information and she was wondering why he kept the fiance from him, and now this, and you know, Bishop herself has a rather large secret that she's keeping. So I think that makes sense that that could potentially come up between them, like that would be relevant in their conversation. And just Swan Torres, I don't know what he's capable of. I feel like he might just bring it up on like a random Tuesday. There were also those statements that McGee and Bishop made that were like, innocent men don't murder, like murder is murder, there's no gray area. Because I think they do idolize Gibbs, and learning this new information about him is startling, to say the least. So I want to see how or if they'll deal with that. So let's move into talking about these final 2 episodes, because I'm so curious as to where we're gonna go with them. The promo for next week has me intrigued, because there's that whole line about like, with a twist that no one saw coming. And I wonder if that twist is them finding out that Emily overdosed, as we know she will in the finale. It's not my favorite with any show when they like tease a twist, but it's actually just something like the characters don't know, but we know, or something that was released in a spoiler. Like, whenever a show advertises a twist, I kind of want to be like screaming. And if it's Emily, I don't know if I'd be feeling that way, because we've known for a while that that's what the finale centers around. So I'm curious to see what the twist is. I also am curious to know what that moment is where Vance is like screaming for Gibbs, and then Gibbs like dramatically turns around, because my logical brain is telling me that that's probably him telling Gibbs that Emily overdosed and that she's in the hospital or something like that. My illogical brain is like, Gibbs, he was alive, she's in my office. I have my doubts that that's what's happening. The haircut. I am actually like really excited to see what's going on with the haircut. Judging from the promotional stuff we've gotten, it looks like he starts the episode out with his longer hair and then ends it with the marine cut. And it reminds me a lot of when he shaved his head again at the end of season 3 after he lost his memory, because I think that hairstyle is just such an identity thing for him. It might just be like such a small thing, but it's something I'm excited for. It also looks like Gibbs is wearing the same clothes in the promotional material for both Lost Time and Daughters. So either this is like a really long day, or he's just not changing clothes anymore, which is also unsettling and makes me a little nervous. I'm curious to know like, what is it about the case that has him so like shook? We do know he will be talking to Grace, and I wonder if he like calls her after he cuts his hair and that's what the emergency she's referring to in the promo is. Speaking of the bar, the scene in the bar, I really thought that was Emily, but it's not. It's just another red-headed woman. Don't they know that they can't put more than one redhead in the same episode? It confuses me. I want to know what Lost Time in the title is referring to. I kind of still wonder if it's, you know, time Gibbs has lost to following his rules, or if it has something to do with being personally involved in a case. It's season 16, where if you're not personally involved, is it even a case? I just really am curious to see what the finale looks like. And with the title Daughters, like, which really just gets the gears in my head spinning, we have like an idea of what the main focus is going to be, but we don't have the whole picture. And I'm wondering what Lost Time is gonna add to that. I don't know, and I hope we see more Jimmy Palmer by the time season 16 is over, because I love him. He's a shining star. I also want to see Delilah. I love Delilah so much. I don't know exactly how she would get brought into this finale, because it seems like it has literally nothing to do with her. Unless she just comes in and holds up her child and is like, I too have a daughter. Again, don't quite know how likely that is. If I had to dream up the finale that I wanted to see, it would involve some element of Ziva. Right now I'm just looking for Ziva references, because I think that could tell us if we're leading to something, and maybe what we're leading to. Again, I want to see some great Gibbs Fornell moments, and maybe some vigilante discussions that they might have. Maybe they'll start their own vigilante team, a competitor vigilante Justice League. Watch out, season 17, we're coming strong. Hello, this is Editing Me coming at you with a very brief update. Basically, TV Guide just put out an article that talks about the finale a little bit more. One of the things I thought was important is that the article mentions Emily being drugged. So apparently she's drugged, and that's what causes her to be in the hospital, not like her own personal drug issue, is what I'm gathering. It also talks about Ghost Diane, which I am so freaking excited about. It appears that my Ghost Diane dreams are finally coming true. It also talks about Ziva. It kind of reiterates what that article that came out a month ago said. It's like, ooh, I love my little horns. It kind of reiterates what that article that came out a month ago said. That's like, yes, the storyline is going somewhere, this plotline is going somewhere, we created it for a reason, we just don't exactly know where it's going yet. It seems like they're still in the process of figuring out exactly where it's gonna go, and I don't know exactly what that means. It does seem like something that they intend to have spill over into season 17. That's essentially what the article is saying. Emily was drugged, Ghost Diane, probably Ziva eventually. The more you know. Thank you for tuning in. Back to me calling Judge Deakins Deeks for some reason. But I believe that's all I have to say about End Executioner. I'm really excited for Lost Time. I'm really excited to move into this finale arc. Let me know what you guys are thinking for these final 2 episodes, and I will see you guys for Lost Time. Hopefully I'll know what the hell it means.